Hello, everyone. I don't think I've ever had a welcome quite like it, so thank you, Joe. I was just waiting for the entrance music to come on. So thank you for coming to see us. I'm going to start things off just by telling you a little story. And you can probably guess why we've called this talk about chaos. So I'm going to take you back to the summer of 2022. And I was feeling quite good about myself. I think we had some rare good weather in the UK. I opened my laptop, logged into my email, opened my cloud bill. Oh my gosh. Now this is, I found it's called Bill Shock, and I think this is the only emoji. We're big emoji fans at Monzo, for anyone that knows us. It's the only emoji that represents how I was feeling. It was dreadful what I was looking at. So what followed was me pausing all work across all of my engineering teams for 6 weeks, and all we did was ship as many optimizations as we possibly could. So Selda and I are here today. We're going to tell you the rest of that story, so what's happened since that summer of 2022, all the things that have happened since, the good things that we've shipped, the mistakes that we've made along the way. And the idea is that you should leave the room today and you've got a good idea of basically what you could copy, things that you definitely shouldn't do, and hopefully you'll learn something in the process. So the other part that isn't to do with chaos is to do with collaboration, and you'll notice there's 2 of us on here today, so we'll quickly introduce ourselves. So my name's Luke. I'm the engineering director for our platform at Monzo. We'll introduce Monzo in a couple of minutes for anyone who doesn't know who we are. I'm an engineer by trade. I'm a back-end engineer turned manager. I've been on the leadership track for probably the last 7 or 8 years. I love distributed systems, solving difficult problems, building reliable systems. But then I'm also one of those weird people who kind of loves the chaos and the firefighting. So I've got some good experience with dealing with terrible incidents. And you can probably guess we're at a FinOps conference. I love FinOps now, so I'm really glad that I found this community. And I'm joined by Selda.
Hello, I'm Selda. I'm the team tech lead of Cloud FinOps Squad. I'm also a data scientist, and I joined Monzo in 2023, so I missed that summer of Bill Shock, unfortunately. My team is very new, so it's formally started this year. That's why it's our first FinOps conference in this. We're very new to FinOps. We're learning still a lot. And prior to leading FinOps in Monzo, I have 5 years of experience in experimentation, and I also have 10 years of experience in data science in general.
So we said we're from Monzo. Is anyone here from the UK? Hopefully you know us. We're quite a well-established, well-known brand in the UK at the moment, but for anyone who doesn't know us, we're a bank. And we have been around for about 10 years now, so we were founded in 2015, and we're built around this mission to make money work for everyone. And the making money work for everyone thing implies that we plan to be a global business one day. So for the US people amongst us, we do have a US business. So if you're looking to change bank, we were voted Britain's best bank a couple of weeks ago. You can get one of our nice, shiny, hot coral cards. Now, I've been told by our brand team, the colour is absolutely hot coral. It's not pink, it's not orange, it's not red, it has to be hot coral. And we're quite well known in the UK, and we will be known all around the world in the next couple of years for our distinctive hot coral cards. So why are we different from other banks? And we're different because we're a tech company. And we run everything in the cloud, so we're completely cloud native. We run a microservices architecture. We've got something like 3,500 microservices. We can have a discussion later about why we've done that if anyone's interested. But the reason I bring up the microservices thing now is because that presents us with some pretty novel problems that we need to solve to do with FinOps. So now that we've covered Monzo and who we are, let's get back to the summer of 2022. Now, like I said earlier, I just stopped all of the work going on across my engineering teams. 6 weeks, it was quite good fun, really, to go and ship all of these optimizations. But as you can imagine, it's pretty disruptive in terms of having to put down our project work, basically not doing anything else other than trying to save money. So when I talk about optimizations, I lead our platform engineering team. So we're doing things like right-sizing our services, we're making everything AZ aware to make sure that we're saving money on data transfer. We're basically paying down the debt that we've just been focused on growth for the last, 6, 7 years. And now is time to actually just think about costs. We'll continue growing, but it's time to get our bill in check. So the real opportunities for us, once we cleared out all of that like low-hanging fruit, was to go and figure out how can we optimize our microservices. So we've got product engineers all across the business who are shipping these microservices onto our platform. And the challenge that we've got is that we actually have no control over the code that they're writing, how they're designing these microservices. Are they building like really like read-heavy services that are costing us a fortune? We've kind of got no insight and we've got no control over that. So we set 2 goals at this point. Number 1 was that I was never, ever going to have one of those bill shock moments again. It was like, when I say it was dreadful, oh my gosh, it was so bad. So we're never going to do that again. And then the second objective was that we never wanted to be the like platform team's responsibility to go and solve these cost problems in future. So we knew that we needed to like democratize cloud spend across the rest of the business. Now, luckily, around that time, I realized like this community existed. I didn't even know what FinOps was in 2022, which kind of caused other problems, but it was great. We kind of had this idea to democratize costs. I spoke to some people in the community, I joined the foundation, and I was like, oh my God, my ideas are like legit. Like other people think the same thing. They're doing it for real. Let's go and do it. So we embarked on a mission here where we were just going to go and visualize all of our costs. We were going to put some numbers in front of engineers and basically incentivize them to go and save some money, ship some code optimizations, find some ways to just reduce that bill that had recently terrified me. So we did really basic things like started to ingest our cost and usage report, made that available so engineers could run queries about it. You can go and interact with the data that existed already. And I'm sorry, but we went and tagged, like we tagged everything. I think I've been in so many talks this week where if somebody hasn't said the word tagging, it's been like a miracle. So we went and tagged all of our resources, got a good understanding about what was running in the cloud. And then we used this to go and start a conversation with teams. And what we shipped was just like a very, very early iteration. We shipped 2 graphs, 2 tables that we showed to these engineering teams. Now, version 1 is on the left. So we just showed our most expensive microservices. I was like pretty chuffed when we first managed to put this together. I thought this is useful. And then I saw what was on there. And I was like, dude, we're a bank. Like the ledger, everything touches the ledger. The transaction service, everything shows as a transaction. And we have an account service, like every customer has an account. So I actually thought about it and I was like, I think this is just telling us what we already know. It's just taking the stuff out of our heads, put it on a chart. And I went to speak to some of the engineers in the product teams and they were like, dude, yeah, we know. Like, what do you want me to do with this? So it was basically useless, that first iteration of what we shipped. But what it did do for us was make us recognize that we've got like a bigger problem to solve. So we can see here that cost eventually hits the ledger. Like all of these requests have flown through our microservices and eventually landed in the ledger. But what we couldn't see was where that request originated from. So was this a customer action where they were sending a payment in the app? Were they doing something else, like using some of our other features? So the problem that I knew that we needed to solve at this point was, how do we understand origin? Like, where are these requests coming from? What microservices is these requests hitting to end up in the ledger or the transaction service? And we'll talk a little more about how we solve that later when I throw over to Selda. So yeah, so we iterated on what we shipped at first, and we built this week-on-week change table and ship that over to engineers. And this was the point where we could actually have some real, like, meaningful discussions with product engineers across the business, because I'd be able to show them a change in their service. And they might say to me, like, yeah, we were expecting this change because we've just shipped a new feature and it's generating X million dollars of new revenue. Or we've just shipped a new bit of compliance because we work in a heavily regulated industry and we need to keep up with things, so it's good money to be spending. Or we fixed a bug, or like for any number of reasons. But it was also good because we caught those like gotchas. Like an engineer shipped something, maybe it's not being a particularly well optimized change, and it's meant that it's still after the fact, but we've been able to identify and go and course correct that. So this is like okay. Like we started having some good discussions with engineers across the business. People started to care a little more about costs because basically they didn't want me coming and landing on their desks and saying, what have you been up to? And kind of digging through their PRs. So we basically got to this point now where culturally things had started to shift, but we knew we had to solve that origin problem that we were talking about earlier. I had to understand what was actually driving this load onto those microservices, like the ledger, like the transaction service. So I got a group of our engineers together, and we were just brainstorming, trying to figure out, how do we actually solve this? And one of our engineers was like, I think we can ship something that will help us understand where load comes from, and we can track it all the way through. So let's talk about what we built with something called load attribution.
Thank you, Luke. So load attribution is an example where we really turn data points into actionable insights. And I'm going to show you how it works and the impacts it has driven for us in Monzo. So earlier you've seen that our ledger and transaction and account services are the most expensive ones for us, and we know this via tagging our cost and usage report. And this is not useful or actionable enough for us because it simply tells us where we get billed, but it's not where the customer action really happens. So we really need something else. And to illustrate this point, here you can see on the screen a very simplified, partial, and abstract journey of a customer action leads to cloud cost. So it starts with a customer opening up the Monzo app and interacts with the service X. And service X talks to service Y in the back end, and service Y in turn talks to service Z, and service Z interacts with the database. So you can see on the screen, key spaces, if you don't know it yet, is AWS product for Cassandra service, Cassandra database. It's our operational database. So we really want to know how much this customer action cost us, but by simply tagging the end destination table, we can't answer this question, because if you zoom out of this path, you'll see loads and loads of similar paths that leads to the database. So by knowing simply how much ledger cost, we can't know how much this customer action cost us. So we need something else. And here comes load attribution. So the engineer built a new backend library that collects data points. So these colored boxes are simply points of data collection. So it starts with a request made to the service X. That's where we start collecting data, and all the data being collected will propagate it through the journey. So once we connect all these data points together, we're able to map the origin to the destination. So as a result, well, now we have a fully connected view. We can query this data from these two different perspectives. So we can query the data from the destination perspectives or from the origin. So let's imagine the destination on the right is our ledger service. And the service X on the left-hand side is a credit card service. So we can, with load attribution data set, we can then answer a question like, hey, today, ledger service cost us this amount, and out of which X amount is coming from credit card. Or using credit card service as an origin, how much it cost us? It costs us Y amount, and it's because it leads all these downstream call into the database. So it's pretty useful for us, and I'm going to show you a very interesting example on how this actually driven us a really real impact. I'm going to introduce you this activity prompt microservice. It's a microservice that does really little things. So it simply nudge our customer some cool products and feature we have. So this is a view a customer will see once they log into their Monzo app on the home. So we show them their most recent transactions on the home page. And activity prompt is this little blue box that's kind of pop up there on the first transaction. It shows, hey, why don't you sort your salary? So why do we need activity prompt? So we have lots of cool products as Monzo Bank, because we want to make money work for everyone. So we have lots of delightful feature and product in the Monzo app. For example, when you receive salary through Monzo Bank, or when you have like a relatively bigger inbound transaction coming in, you can actually sort that money into different pots. For example, if you have an investment pot, saving pots, or you might have a pot that is for your next holiday in Greece. You can simply just sort that money into different pots however you want. And another feature I personally really like is when I go out with a bunch of friends and family, let's say 7 other people, enjoy a really great dinner in a restaurant. And when it comes to the end, we need to pay for the bill. I wonder, what is the common practice in the US when it comes to paying for everyone? Is it you go Dutch? So do you do split? You go Dutch, or you just pay for everyone? Yeah.
Monzo are coming for a watch next year.
Yeah, it's very common in the UK, or at least in London, to kind of want to split the bill. And is that awkward? So it can be awkward. Yeah. Yeah, so in London, it's not so awkward, but the problem is sometimes in order to split the bill, either equally or whatever, you pay for whatever you order, you'll see like 8 credit cards on the table waiting for the staff to be able to like collect money from everyone. It can be quite time consuming. So in Monzo, we have this really nice feature where you can I can pay for everyone, and I just go back to my transaction and say, I want to split this bill. I just select all these friends and family and submit. And if some of your friends and family have Monzo account, great, that experience will be very smooth. You just receive a request and you just approve, and I get money back. Even if some of the friends, they don't have Monzo account, that's not a problem. They can still get the link so that I can pay via the link to me. So it's very smooth and not awkward at all. Yeah, so it's a bit detour, but basically what I'm trying to say is we have a lot of this cool and delightful feature for customer, and they can use this feature by kind of clicking through this transaction respectively. So you can imagine, although these features are great, we love them and our customers love them, they might not be so discoverable. So it might be a bit hidden because you have to kind of click through this transaction to like entry this feature. So activity prompt is really just a simple nudge to say, hey, why don't you do this? And this small thing that we did was really hugely loved within Monzo internally because it boosted our product discovery drastically. And after we rolled out the first iteration of low distribution, we found out that activity prompt was one of the most expensive services. Everyone was so surprised because it was so loved and it was so simple. We talked to the engineer who owned this service, it was surprised too. But by investigating a little bit into the code, they realized, okay, we are reading 10 transactions each time this page is refreshed or visited again for each user. So do you think we really need to read top 10 transactions each time? No, why not? Yeah, exactly. So you can see on the screen, we only show 3 or maybe up to 5. And the rest of them is kind of folded. You have to click see all to see more. So as a nudge, it's not a real product, it's just a nudge. We don't really need to search top 10 every time. So the engineer had the same idea. They did a one-line code change. So this one-line code change reduced the cost by 30%. And this was one of the most expensive services. So imagine that 30% was quite substantial for the team. And the engineers of the team didn't stop there. They got inspired by what we can do with low distribution. So with this information we provided, they continued to find more opportunities spontaneously without any push from the platform, which was quite amazing. Yes. And I'm going to show you another example where collaboration with data can be quite pivotal. And when I say data, I mean data discipline. So I'm a data scientist, so I'm part of a data discipline. So look, what does this remind you of?
You probably know where I'm going with this, but again, an absolute feeling of dread. Whenever we used to have to reforecast every 6 months. So someone in our finance team would come to me and they'd say, Luke, can we get your cloud projections for the next 5 years? And I'd be like, yeah, like maybe, let's give it a go. And I'm coming at this like with a blunt set of instruments, basically. Like I'm an engineer, I've got a good understanding of the platform, and I've got a spreadsheet. So I was setting our budgets out thinking, this makes sense. Month 1 would pass, month 2 would pass, and this red line just kept getting further and further away from our budget. And we were in the region of probably like, I was out by 15 to 20%, like on standard. Like pretty much every month we were just way under where I expected us to be, and our bills were higher. So every month I'd get called by the CFO, our CEO, and they were like, why are we overspending? And actually the problem was I was just setting the forecasts like incorrectly. And I thought, this is a pretty surmountable problem, right? I'm not a data scientist, but it feels like it's a problem that a data science could probably solve. So Selda was doing some work across one of my other platform teams, working on a completely different problem, building a experimentation platform out. So quite naively, I just grabbed a coffee with Selda and I was like, hey Selda, so you're a data scientist, right? Can you just spend a day, maybe 2 days, and just figure out how we solve these problems? And you can probably tell where the rest of this talk is going to go, because we're still on the stage next to each other like 12, 18 months later. So it's probably not a day or 2 to solve these problems.
Yes, so when I chatted with Luke, this is what I exactly felt from Luke's face. It's a shock again. So we were about to enter another budget cycle. And Luke told me this is a problem. So as a data scientist, I went working on something completely differently. I was so happy to have something else as a distraction to work on for a few days, and I'd happily jump into this problem. And although Luke talked about the stress, but it's definitely understandable why this can be stressful, because in Monzo, the cloud budget is centrally determined within platform organization. So that means when the budget is approved, Luke is ultimately accountable. So whenever there was deviation, big or small, Luke has to come and explain to our finance or senior leaders what happened. So totally, I empathize your stress. So why is there a big deviation here? So by the quick look of it, what I found is that our FP&A partner has been using this strong assumption that they kind of try to forecast on each AWS service we use. They assume that the cost per weekly active user, so weekly active user is our kind of very important business KPI, they assume that it should be constant over time. So they look back the data 6 to 12 months, figure out this number, and assume this number is going to stay for however long, like foreseeable future, 6 months to 5 years. But in reality, this number isn't constant. So why is this problematic? Why is this mismatch a problem? So as Luke is the accountable leader of the budget, Luke can obviously question the validity of weekly active user or WOW as a driver. So is it really a good driver to forecast? At the same time, our FP&A partner or leader can also challenge, why is our cost per WOW growing up? Like, are we not doing great in our platform anymore? Are we not being efficient anymore? So at that moment, nobody was happy. So when I stepped into this problem a year ago, I had zero knowledge or context in AWS. I didn't know what FP&A does. I have no knowledge, basically. But in order to help Luke, I went into a meeting of like 30 minutes meeting with several platform engineers and FP&A partner to learn all the data sources they've been using, all the assumptions they've been making, all the trouble they had, and more importantly, learn the context I needed to have to solve the problem. So this is an AI-generated picture of me. It was me literally overwhelmed with all the information. But after some understanding of this different usage we have in our cloud, like compute, data transfer, and database, it started to make more sense that weekly active user might not be the best driver for all. So weekly active user is simply defined as a user who has made at least one transaction in the last 7 days in Monzo. And I mentioned that we love to build delightful products and features for our customers. So we have loads of products, and the offering is still growing. So you can easily find examples where two customers, they're both weekly active, but they might have very different cloud usage for us. For example, a customer might have adopted investment product, pension, and loan, mortgage, and so on and so forth. So they use the app a lot to deal with their financial activities. At the same time, we might have another customer who simply use the Hakoro. Oh yeah, I do have my Hakoro card. So a Hakoro card, just tap in a coffee shop every day for their morning coffee without logging into the app. So I'm going to put it back before I lose it. So these two users are both weekly active by definition, but you can imagine they might have very different cloud usage and representation for us. So inspired by this thought and hypotheses, I did first thing. I expand our pool of potential drivers to be considered in the budget and forecast process. And the most important driver is product adoption. So product adoption here, it means the number of products this customer has adopted during this period, or maybe whether this customer has adopted this particular product. And the second thing I did is to use very common data science approach to find the best driver for each AWS service separately. And these two initial steps already improve our deviation from 15% to 5%. As a result, we gain back the confidence and trust we have in our ability to forecast. And product adoption now has become the common language used across FP&A partner and senior leaders in the discussion of budget, or even like kind of scenario planning into the future. If we were to have better product adoption versus when we have not so good product adoption, what does that look like for our budget? And I'm going to show you 3 real examples where our forecast done pretty well on a daily basis. And you will see these usage are forecast by different drivers. So first, you will see 2 lines. The first blue one is our actual usage, and the orange line is the predicted usage. You can see you have somewhat like weekly pattern here. And this turns out to be our networking predict by daily active user, or data transfer predict by daily active user. In the second example, we have another completely different pattern. There was a kind of growing pattern, almost monotonically growing. And it is our database storage predict by monthly active user. In the third example, we have also similarly weekly kind of pattern, but it's quite different from the first one. This is our database reads requests predict with product adoption. And I want to highlight that since now we have good confidence in our forecastability, so a data point like this is quite interesting because we also have some anomaly detection happens in parallel. So anomaly detection sometimes can tell us that we are spending more unexpectedly or less, or some cost spike. But anomaly detection is not necessarily driven by business driver. They don't have any awareness about where our business units are. So a data point like this adds really good complementary information to say something isn't quite right because they disagree with each other quite largely, our actual and forecast. So it's really actionable for us, this prototype. So I have finished this prototype in probably a few days, and I got so hooked into this whole problem and got really fascinated by the wider problems of FinOps. Now I have automated this approach into production, and I'm iterating on it. I'm full-time doing FinOps. I'm leading a team. So look, this is definitely not a few days job. Thank you. Oh, sorry. And I want to continue to say, so the best learning I have through this experience is that as a data person who didn't know anything about AWS or cloud or even finance concept, I can still make meaningful contributions to the problem, provided I'm given some education about the context and through collaboration with engineer. And we still look at budget versus actual as our business as usual activity. But with all these initiatives, we're now in much more proactive, and much more data informed, and definitely much more calmer, right?
Yes, definitely. So we put the word collaboration in the title for this because I think like the key for us unlocking a lot of these efficiencies has just been putting engineers together with data scientists, together with people who understand accounting best practice, pointing everybody at solving a common problem, and then kind of just like letting them go and trusting that they'll fill each other in, like teach each other things, fill in any context gaps, all of that. And Selda's maybe underplaying it, but the team she leads now has backend engineers, analytics engineers. Selda is a data scientist. We've got FP&A partners from across the business who are contributing to it. And it feels like the progression that we've made in just 12, 18 months has like just been incredible. The fact that I don't get told off every month for how badly like forecasted our cloud bills are is showed that we've like really come a long way. So I think now we're in a place where we've got a good handle on our costs. We are actually sending like anomaly alerts to teams to say, you have got something that looks a little weird against what we'd expect your service to be spending at this time, and they're actually taking action on that without us needing to intervene. And we hear like in FinOps, there's a lot of this concept of like shifting left. And we actually have engineers who come and speak to the team completely proactively now to say, we're thinking about shipping this new feature, we've got a new product that we want to launch, here's the options that we're considering, kind of which is the most cost-effective one for us to go for. And they're kind of factoring costs into that upfront decision-making. If you came to us 3 years ago when that bill landed in my inbox, like that just wasn't happening. We were just thinking about speed, shipping the product as quickly as possible, and then we deal with the cost later. So a huge step forward. But the other thing that I've heard in so many talks this week is that there's still lots to do. FinOps is never done. So we've got loads more to do ahead of us. But I think on reflection, earlier I said that I set 2 goals after we initially had that summer of 2022 moment. Number 1 was that I never wanted to have like a bill shock again, and touch wood, haven't since. And number 2 was that we wanted to make sure that this wasn't like a platform engineering problem to solve. Like I didn't want to have to stop work across my teams to go and optimize things across the board. We should like democratize that and empower product engineering teams to do it for themselves. And both of those things, like they're both true today. We're not having to do that. And I actually think the biggest change for us is that costs are like genuinely no longer that platform engineering problem. Like we see it as an opportunity across the entire business to just run a more efficient operation. And as a result, it means we can offer cheaper products, cheaper services to all of our customers. So I guess to wrap things up, and I said I was going to give you a couple of things to take away. Number 1, and I think this is probably the most obvious like takeaway you'll hear all week, but if you're not like starting solving these problems now, like start as soon as possible. I will never forget that like summer of 2022. It was a terrible yet like career-defining moment for us. And it was really the trigger that's helped us grow up in terms of our like FinOps and our like day-to-day like operation across the bank. So it's a positive, but I don't wish it upon anyone. It's a tough time. Second one is that focus on those like actionable insights. Like we're engineers, right? If you show us that something isn't quite right, you can just nerd swipe us into solving problems. Like we will go, like we're curious people, we will go and figure out the root cause of these problems. And the activity prompt example that Selda shared earlier is like a really good example of this, where we kind of just dangled that one carrot in front of the engineers and they were like, right, one like code change, 30%. And then they were like hungry for more. I was like, you're just doing this by yourselves, that you don't need us to help you. And they just went and shipped more and more optimizations. And we've just seen like a compounding effect of that happening across the whole business since. So incentivize your engineers. It's great impact for them. It's like really quick and like validating to show something was costing X before and now you've made a couple of lines code change and now it costs Y. Like we love that. So give us the data to work with. And then thirdly, I would encourage you all to like really go and find those collaboration opportunities across your business. Like I knew that Selda had all of these data science skills and we were using it to solve a very, very different problem previously. And just that one like chance, like coffee where I was like, can you solve like all these problems for us? Like it genuinely has been the key to unlocking all of these efficiencies. So hopefully you've learned some interesting things from us today. And thank you for coming to hear us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Any questions?
So when you're dealing with the API calls and API management, you can turn on logging to like log analytics or whatever. Are you adding like the origin and the destination for your load attribution to those logs?
Into the actual logs themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
We basically like appending them.
Gotcha.
So it's all there in the one place now.
Yeah.
So it's been great. It was quite a difficult like engineering problem to solve, but once we'd unlocked it and we found a way to just propagate that out across everything, it's been like a game changer for us. So.
Hi. Hi, thank you for the talk. Do you think that FinOps organizations should have data specialists within the group? I think so. I'd just love to hear somebody else say it.
I love that question. That's what we were hinting. So we do think it would be great to have a data persona that sits across finance and engineers. We kind of see more and more importance of what data, discipline of data, kind of data scientist data in machine learning can bring to the table.
Yeah, definitely. We were actually talking to some of the team before when we were preparing the talk. We were just like, is this something that is missing? Like, should we add it? I think we probably like eventually could have solved these problems without data people, but like with the background that we've got as engineers, like it's just not using our skills in the right way. Like we've moved so much quicker, and that like 15% to 5% degree of accuracy, and we want to drive that much lower. By the way, we want to get below like 0.5% eventually. We couldn't do that without having like data people with us. So.
Thank you.
I just want to comment, Luke. I love the comment you just made. Yeah, we could engineer our way out of it, but that's not the best use of our skills. Collaborating with the right skill set is very good.
Yes. It's also an expensive way of doing it.
So it seems like you got pretty good engagement from your engineers, and I'm wondering why do they care? And that it's a bit of a baited question. And is it because you are in a chargeback? And if so, how are you orchestrating that since the resource tags are kind of irrelevant with this model?
Yeah, that's a good question. We still don't actually do any like internal chargeback. Like we still just have like one big like platform pot that we pay for cloud costs out of. So the main way that we incentivize engineers is that we kind of benefit from having a good like culture internally. We haven't had to fight the culture problem to make engineers care. Until recently, we weren't even a profitable business. So like the incentives were pretty clear that if we wanted to get to the point where we broke even and we're making money, because all of our employees are shareholders in the business, it's going to be good for us, it'd be good for customers. It was actually quite easy. And just giving the engineers the nudge to say, I think there's a problem that you can solve over here, like the data did the hard work for us. So maybe it's luck.
I can add that in Monzo, we really care about impact. So it's like part of our performance review equation. So if they can say, during the last year, I saved the company this X amount of money, it'd be really good for the performance review as well.
That is true. Good.
Any other? So wait, I was about to say any other questions, but I just want to repeat that. You let them know exactly their impact that they can track and put on there. Nice.
There's nothing better. We have a Slack channel internally that's called Graph Trending Downwards. And these optimizations were absolute gold for engineers. You can show your like before and after impact. And the second that you can show a graph that just goes like that, people are screenshotting it and dropping it in this channel like as soon as possible.
That's awesome.
It's so rewarding.
That's awesome. Good culture.
We're going to be around this evening. We'd love to like chat to people. So just come and find us later. Ask us awkward questions. If you want, we'll tell you as much as possible. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Big round of applause.
Hey everyone, producer Andrew here. Thank you so much for watching and for your support. For more FinOps X 2025 content, go check out our YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, and leave comments and questions for all of our wonderful speakers. We appreciate your support.